Okay, you guys have seen me make stencils using protractors, rulers, freehand drawing them, using a light tracing pad, using random objects I find in my office, and a light tracing table. So, you guys asked, I'm here to show you how I make my stencils nowadays on my gpad on an app called Sketchbook. Let's get into it. Okay, so first things first, we're just going to open up the Sketchbook app, and I am going to kind of reverse or zoom out on the page. I want to be able to see the entire page before we start working on anything. So we've got a ton of different kind of panels here and options to work with, so we're going to go through each one at a time. So we're going to start over on the right side here, and this is our pages or our layers panel. So every time we hit this plus sign, we're adding a page or a layer. You can draw on each one of these, you can combine them all together. There are a ton of options, as you can see, when you actually click on each individual page. So we're not going to go through every single one. As you can see, you've got opacity here you can play with, you've got merge, that's what I was talking about, combining all your pages, but you're just going to have to get in there and play around. So let's just quickly clear all of our pages, get down to one. Up at the top here, you can see this little black circle, and that is what controls your color. So when you click on that, you can go in and choose any color you want just by kind of moving this little dial around to whatever color you want, and then whatever shade of that color you want. So if you want to just clear the page, you can simply click on the page and hit clear. Or you can go to the top panel you see up here and hit back. So you have a couple options to kind of clear things completely or just go back a couple steps. So let's go over to this left side panel over here, and this is where we have all of our options for pens, pencils, paintbrushes. There are a ton of different options to choose from, but again, we're going to keep it pretty simple. All we're doing here is making stained glass stencils. So unless you're an artist, then that's when you can kind of really go in here and start digging around, playing around, seeing what type of tool you really want to use. And then they have different kind of variations for each individual tool as well. Like I said, there are a ton of options to go through, but I'm going to keep it very simple. All I ever use is just the technical pen. The only thing I ever really adjust is the size of it or the opacity. So you can see right here, that is a quick way to adjust the size of whatever tool you're using. You can turn it all the way up, that's as thick as you go, or all the way down, and it's going to be very, very thin. So again, we can just erase it by hitting that back button, or we could hit the clear. So let's put them all back, hit our page, we're going to clear it. So we have a couple options to adjust the size and opacity. I'm just going to quickly change back to black so I don't forget. So clicking on our technical pen here is where I can get even more in depth on adjusting that individual tool. So again, the technical pen. So I'm going to adjust the size to around 4.8. That is typically where I like to keep it for my stained glass stencils. But as you guys kind of start playing around, you can figure out what size you want to keep it at. But again, I like to keep mine right about 4.8, or I'll go a little bit lower with some details sometimes. So going back into the actual technical pen, so I'm just clicking on the actual tool that I'm using. You can adjust the opacity as well. So if you want something to be a little bit more see-through, you just turn that opacity down, and it is just going to make it a little bit less intense. So typically, we're going to want the opacity all the way up to 100%, which again, you have quick access right here too. With those quick access bars, you have the opacity at the bottom and again, the thickness at the top. So let's move to this top panel up here, and this is what we're going to be using most often, I'd say, making stained glass stencils. So of course we've got our back button, forward button, and we've got a ton of different options within this bar as well. So this very first one, we have our lasso option, and then we have different shapes within it. Then we have kind of transform, again, different shapes within it. Then we have paint, so this is kind of where you'd want to paint fill either your entire page or a specific shape. Then we have our ruler, which I find to be most useful. So we have a straight edge ruler. We can change the diagonal of it. You can change the size of it. Then you have a bendable ruler, so that has these 3 points in which you can completely move around to get different shapes and draw along it. Then you've got a circular ruler. You've got all different options within everything. So here we've got sections. So this is going to section your page depending on how many sections you want. You can split it completely in half so you can make exactly symmetrical stencils. You can split it into 6 different sides, 8 different sides. There are literally unlimited options. Then next down the line, we have our shapes here. So this is going to help us draw a straight line, a circle, or a square, whatever shape you need. It's just going to make it perfect. Then the tool I use the most, or at least always have on a little bit, and that is predictive stroke. So as you can see here, I am quickly drawing circles in oval, and the app is perfecting what I'm drawing. So you can see after I draw it, the app goes in and tries to kind of predict what I was attempting to draw, and it corrects any imperfections. So say I was to draw a circle, it makes it perfect. If I draw a quick line, it's going to make it perfect. And depending on what level you have your predictive set to, is going to kind of dictate how much it's going to edit whatever it is you're drawing. So after that, we have import image, and this we are also going to use a lot as well, but we'll get into that in a second. Once again, we have more options as far as grids and points on your page. So this again is going to kind of divide your page into planes. I don't know how else to put that, but again, we're not going to be really messing with that too much. The best way to learn this stuff, guys, is to really go in there and just play around until you figure it out. Today, I'm just going to be giving you the basics. So next up, we've got text, and we've got, again, a bunch of options within that. So if we want to actually put text on our screen, this is going to allow us to do so, whatever color we want, whatever plane we want, and whatever font we want. Then we've got record. So that last button right there is going to allow you to screen record, just like I'm doing now. I am using a different app for this video, but in this app specifically, it does have an option to screen record, which is pretty cool. Okay, and the last option we have is all the way over to the left here on this top bar, and that is essentially our menu button. That's where you can hit new sketch, gallery, so that's where you'd import an image. You can save, import files, share. All your different basic menu options on really any app is that button right there. Top left is your menu. Okay, so now that we've got the basics down and I've showed you kind of the most important tools I use while making my stained glass stencils, let's actually go in and quickly do something. Today we're going to do something simple, and that is essentially we're going to trace an image. So we're going to pretend that we are doing a custom of somebody's dog. Obviously 9 times out of 10 when we're making our own designs, we're not tracing an image, but I wanted you guys to be able to really focus on learning how to actually use this app. So today we're just doing the most simple thing possible, and that is a scenario in which we're actually tracing the face or image of somebody's pet. So we don't have to worry about actually making a design today. We are focused simply on using the app. So the first thing we're going to do is import an image. So we clicked on our image tool at the top left button is going to open up all of our images. So we're going to open our reference photo here. I've got a couple different to choose from, but because the right side has her pink puppy snout, I'm going to actually choose the left picture. So it imports the image, then you want to choose how big you want the image on your actual page. Remember, your page is set to normal printer paper, so I'm going to widen it as big as I can get it. Now I'm going to place that image at the bottom. So we want a clean page on top of our photo versus underneath it, so we can actually draw on our clean page and we're not drawing on the image itself. So I brought that photo to the bottom of our side pages panel, and I'm going to also turn the opacity down. Now, whether or not you guys do that is going to be up to you, but I find it a lot easier to trace and to draw on top of when I am doing a custom picture like this and I am actually tracing an image. To turn the opacity way down, then I can really see what I'm actually drawing on top of. So I'm just doing some test runs here, kind of figuring out where I want the opacity at, seeing how thick I want my pen. Then I'm just going to go ahead and clear that image and we can start actually tracing. So I've got the opacity set to where I want it. I'm going to make sure the page I'm drawing on is actually highlighted. You want to make sure you're on your blank page. You don't want to be drawing on the image. You want to be drawing on your blank page. So now all I'm doing is simply going in and tracing out our design. So again, we're keeping it super easy today. I picked specifically something that we would trace so we can kind of focus on the tools. I've got my predictive text all the way up, so it is really smoothing things out. Then when I get to the bottom of her muzzle here, I need to kind of do some purposefully uneven lines, and the predictive stroke is not going to let us do that, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that predictive stroke down just a little bit so it's not overly correcting these lines that I'm drawing on the muzzle at the bottom here and making them straight when I do not want them to be. So like I said, I'm just going in and I'm going to go ahead and trace this entire face. So always we're keeping in mind that we are doing this to make a stained glass piece. So always in the back of your head, you are going to be thinking about what you can, what you cannot cut out, what lines are going to look best cut where, what pieces we're going to have to go in and do with, example, an enamel paint detail instead of making an actual cut. Because as you can see here, this dog specifically, this is Kilo, this is Colleen's dog, all of the black freckling she has at her snout and at the top of her mouth and muzzle, we're not going to make individual stained glass cuts for that because that's just going to not look good in the end. All we're doing is making our basic, most bold outlines as our cuts. Does that make sense? So that big white stripe down the middle of her face and the big main black patches on her nose and on the left and right side of her face that holds each eye and ear, those are going to be our main pieces cut from our stained glass, and everything else is going to be smaller cuts like her nose, her mouth, and then when we get to things like the whiskers, we can do that with pieces of wire, and all that freckling we're going to do with enamel paint. You do not want to go in and make a ton of different cuts. It's just going to end up looking messy and it's not going to read correctly in the end. So you want to focus on making all of the main areas your main cuts. Everything else we'll do in smaller, more specific detail later down the road. So now that we've got those basics down, I'm just going to go ahead using all the tools that we've already gone over, go in and finish completely tracing out this drawing here. So I'm just going to completely finish tracing all of those major bold outlines that I was telling you about. So again, the complete outline of her face and those most important details. Of course, her nose and her eyes, any detail in her ears that we're going to want to cut out in stained glass. And again, everything else is going to be left for either stained glass enamel paint or wire, details like that. But the big bold pieces, like you can see every time I kind of turn off the photo image, and you can do that by clicking that eye. So over on the right side panel, you'll see on each page you have a little eyeball icon. And if you click that, a little cross will go through it and that specific page you clicked on will disappear. So every so often I can go over to the image, click that eyeball icon, the image will disappear so I can really see what my stencil looks like. So I'm just going in, drawing, seeing what I like. If I don't like it, erase it, draw it again, putting in those details of the whiskers to see if I'm going to want to do those in wire at all, drawing in the details of those little patches in front of her nose, seeing if I did want to do them in stained glass or if I am going to want to do them in enamel. So yeah, just going back and forth, completely tracing this outline, and that is it, guys. As soon as we finish this up, we have got our pretty minimal, very simple stained glass stencil ready to be printed. So now I am just doing all of my finishing touches. Once again, just kind of going back and forth, removing that photo underneath it to make sure I really like everything. Kind of just double checking to make sure I'm going to want the details like her pupil and her nose to be done in enamel because she was a very black dog in those sections where she was black and she had very dark eyes. If you guys want to go in and label each piece of glass to let you know what color it's going to be, you can absolutely do that. I don't like that, so I'm just going to leave mine blank. I already know what she looks like just by memory. So we're completely done. Now we're going to go in. We are going to save our current sketch. And of course, her name was Kilo, so I'm going to save it under Kilo. And then I'm going to simply print this out. And as soon as we print it out, we officially have our handmade stained glass stencil. All right, guys, and just like that, we have our stained glass handmade stencil printed out and ready to use. I always like to make a few copies just to have them kind of ready to go. So I always have some filed in my filing cabinet. But yeah, that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Let me know what you guys thought. And more importantly, comment down below and let me know if you want to see me make this actual stained glass piece. I can absolutely do that. But yeah, today I just wanted to really focus on actually making the stained glass design itself and what pieces to focus on, like these major pieces on her face. I just felt like it was going to be much easier to digest learning this app on a much simpler design, something that you guys can see me just copying versus actually making my own design. We can just focus on what's important, and that's learning the app and figuring out what is needed to make a good base for a stained glass stencil. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, like I said, that's it for today's video, guys. So as always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video if you did, comment down below and let me know what do you want to see next, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.